I believe I can talk about this subject since my arms are relatively huge. Hi, my name is Milan. I share my lessons here on YouTube, and today we're talking about big arms. What do you need to do to get big arms? And genuinely, what is the secret? Do you really need to train arms for 8 hours straight just to get 17 or 18-inch arms? And without further ado, let's start. The first thing I can say here in this video, and the most common mistake I see people make when it comes to arm training, is you're not training your arms frequently enough. When you take a look at your arms and their anatomy, you realize that your arms aren't really that huge. Like, sure, my arms are, but when it comes to the normal human body, when the person isn't training, the arm muscles aren't really that huge. Therefore, you can train them more often. And my split for this, I can actually bring my own example here, and how my arms have gotten so big over the past few years is I have trained arms into fucking oblivion, man. Because one day I would train triceps, then the next day I would train biceps, and then triceps, biceps, and so on and so on. And I would constantly get that stimulus. And why did that actually work? Because the muscle isn't really that huge, and so it doesn't take a long time to recover. You may be confused, like, Milan, what does muscle size have to do with this? Take a look at your bicep. So mine starts here and ends here. I can train biceps every single day, and you probably can as well, but we'll just say, for the sake of simplicity, every 2 days. Now, take a look at your hamstring, or actually, you can look at your quad. It's the same story. When you train your legs for 3 to eventually 5 days, you cannot train your legs, and that is because of muscle size and the intensity and the psychological problems that are associated with leg training. But we're not talking about that. This video, we're talking about frequency here. You can train your arms literally every single day, with, of course, periodization. So not do arm day every single day, but rather on the first day, let's say you're training chest and triceps, you can literally add 2 tricep exercises at the end of your chest workout, or if you want to prioritize them even more, start with triceps. It's really not that complicated when you think about it. Like, yeah, if you want to get bigger biceps, you have to train them more often and you have to prioritize them. As I said, the first day would be chest and triceps, the second day would be back and biceps. And so at the beginning of your workout, you don't start with lat pull down or pull-ups, you start with preacher curls or with normal bicep curls. And this doesn't just work with arms, it works with every single muscle group in your body. So you're training chest and shoulders, for example, start with your shoulders first. Okay, you won't get amazing stimulus on the chest because it's not the first exercise, but you'll still hit chest after shoulders. You can start with, let's say, military press and then lateral raises. Then after that, you hit bench, and it's not like a revolutionary concept, what I'm talking about here. You can literally hit whatever you want at the beginning of your workout if you want to prioritize that. Getting back to what I was saying previously. So the first day would be chest and triceps, the second day back and biceps, third day would be, let's say, legs. And when you're training legs, you're just cooked. You can't train anything else for a while after that. Then the fourth day, honestly, have an arm day. I know I said at the beginning of the video that you don't need a dedicated arm day, but if you want to take this seriously, yes, an arm day would actually be necessary. And me, myself, a guy who has 17-inch fucking arms, I still have an arm day because why the fuck not? I don't need to train legs, so I replaced legs with arm day. My split is very specific. I'm not gonna talk about that this video. That deserves a whole separate video just on that subject. But my story is kind of interesting since all of my genetics went into my quads or my legs. I really don't need to train legs more than once every 2 weeks because it's just unnecessary and honestly counterproductive. I can't find jeans to wear, bro. You may be thinking, Milan, why don't you just get a bigger pair? I don't understand the problem here. The problem is my quads are way too big compared to my waist. So why am I even talking about this? However, I will say that having an arm day, especially if you want bigger arms, isn't really counterproductive, but you have to take into consideration that some things are just gonna lag behind. What I want to say in this segment is if you want to have bigger arms, you need to prioritize them, maybe even have a dedicated arm day or 2 arm days per week. But take into consideration that when you start focusing on something, something else is going to lag behind. For example, if I wanted to train deadlifts more, or if I wanted to hit a certain deadlift PR, I'd have to focus on deadlift twice per week. I'd have to kill myself when it comes to deadlifts. But what about squats and bench press? I'm not gonna be focused on those 2 things. I only want to get better at the deadlift, so I will prioritize deadlifts every single leg day or every back day, whatever. And the case with arms is actually the same. So if you want to have bigger arms, actually prioritize them and train them more frequently. Now, I know this will get me more retention and likes and so on, so I'll talk about this for a little bit. Exercise selection. What I figured out over the past few years is that exercise selection, when it comes to arms specifically, isn't really that relevant. However, I will talk about some general pointers that you can apply to your exercises to make them even more effective. So it's a full range of motion with a deep stretch with a controlled eccentric that you can progressively overload on. Now, when it comes to the specifics, like, is this angle better for the triceps or is the lying down version of that exercise better? That isn't really relevant. How you execute that movement, what's your technique, how much weight do you use, how much volume are you doing every single set? That's what counts. Not this shit of, the 45-degree angle is the best since the triceps are the most stimulated in that position. That's not what is relevant here. What is relevant here is how much weight can you do for a certain amount of reps, how intensely do you train, and also do you have a full range of motion, and so on. That's what actually counts. I don't like talking about specific exercises because people will say, oh, but then this guy said preacher curls are better than normal dumbbell curls. Everyone is going to have a different opinion because that's how fitness YouTube works. Every single person wants to say something unique, so people actually watch them, but in reality, the truth is much more simple. However, I want to increase audience retention in this video, so I'll talk about a few exercises that I like doing. This version of the overhead tricep extensions, I like this one better. Some people like the normal one where they try to get the arm as high as they can. That version is also okay. Secondly, skull crushers, close grip bench press, and tricep pushdowns. I know people like to do that tricep push down or tricep pull down movement the most because it's the most fun. Like when you think of a tricep exercise, that's what you think of. But honestly, there are many superior exercises that I would honestly say that the close grip bench press is a better exercise for triceps than the tricep push down. Now, when it comes to biceps, you don't need to do some crazy variation of the cable bicep curl where you get on top of the machine and try to do some Jeff Nippard-esque deep eccentric motion. That's for idiots, in my opinion. People who want to do those movements, honestly, you can do them, fine by me. But what I stick to, preacher curls, flat bench dumbbell curls, and Bayesian curls, however you properly pronounce that. Those 3 exercises I stick by, and for me, they work the best. Especially since I have relatively bad bicep genetics. Like, okay, now my bicep is actually popping, but I don't have that peak, and these exercises that I primarily do, they gave me the best result. Now somebody's gonna come here and say, but just do barbell bicep curls, bro, it's the most anabolic movement, man. You can do that exercise or any other exercises that aren't science-based, but I can explain to you here why. For example, the flat bench dumbbell curl, is more superior, or you can just trust my opinion and trust my advice, since I actually did those exercises. I did the fucking normal rotating bicep curl, I did the barbell bicep curl, and I had flat biceps, bro. My arms were meek compared to what they are now. So trust my advice, man. And the last thing that I can say here, this is gonna be short: get better at compound lifts. When you think about some bodybuilders that had massive arms, sure, they trained their arms, but they also had massive arms from doing compound lifts in the first place. So if you can do pull-ups with proper form, if you can do 15 of those, or if you can do proper chin-ups with great technique, then you're gonna have big biceps, man. And also, if you can bench 405 pounds naturally, you're gonna have big triceps. Even though the normal bench press or the wide grip bench press isn't considered a tricep movement, you still need to have a good foundation for your arms for them to grow. Like, if I just came in the gym and started doing tricep extensions like crazy and science-based versions of bicep curls, I'd have big arms. But the guy who's focusing on normal bench press, close grip bench press, barbell rows, lat pull down, all of these exercises, and he doesn't even train arms, he would still have bigger arms than me because his full physique is rounded out, and also he gets more arm stimulus from those compound exercises than I get from these isolation movements. My advice to you is incorporate specific isolation like exercises into your training routine, but also focus on the compound lifts, the basics, because that's what gives you the whole structure. Sure, you can have big arms, but if you don't have a big chest, if you don't have visible abs, if you have small legs, your arms mean nothing when you take a look at the rest of your physique. But we're gonna talk about that another video. Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully you learned something, and if you want to watch my last video, you can click here, and I'd highly appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel here. And as always, see you at the top. Arms looking massive, bro.